Hi group. I have realized I haven't sent you one of these videos in a while, so I thought here as we near the end of the class, I'd send you one of these to talk a little bit about what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks with readings and also your final seminar paper. As I'm reviewing the syllabus, I can see that we're just in the final 2 weeks of the semester, and what I've decided to do in the final 2 weeks of the semester is to not so much talk about the kinds of writing that's out there and the ways that we might approach writing, but the different kinds of students we might encounter in our classes, because that's, I think, a really important intersection with teaching writing, that we have all kinds of different approaches to writing, all kinds of different pedagogies, all kinds of different ways to think about assessing it, but that at the end of the day intersects with the students coming into our classes. And the angle that I would like for you to try to take on this is to think critically and skeptically about the assumptions we make about students once we put labels on them. Once we know, for example, that a student is a basic writer or a gifted student or whatever, what assumptions do we make about their capabilities? And in what ways might that affect the ways in which we interact with them, the ways in which we assess their work? Think specifically about Williams' The Phenomenology of Error, where he claims that a lot of what you see as far as error goes has less to do with finding errors, but more to do with people who come from certain backgrounds or who have certain preferred labels attached to them are less likely to be identified as people who make error. And I think a lot of that has to do with what I'm calling identity construction. So when we hear that somebody's gifted, what assumptions do we make about them and their writing? And how might that affect the way in which we look at their writing and assess their writing? The same thing is true with basic writers. And this week you're looking at just 2 readings. One is a chapter from the basic writing book from earlier in the semester, and this one is about who basic writers are and who they might be. And I want you to think about the kind of presumptions that we all make about basic writers. And then there's another reading this week about gifted writers and the assumptions we make about them. So I'm really asking you to think critically about what I'm calling identity construction. That when I say gifted writer, I'm asking you to examine more what we think that means and how that might alter the way in which we behave towards them. Next week, we're going to be looking at 2 other kinds of writers with all kinds of assumptions we make about them. The first will be multilingual writers. You'll be reading Spack's The Rhetorical Construction of Multilingual Students. And I had originally put a second reading about multilingual writers off there, but I'm going to take that one off and instead include a chapter about students who have learning disabilities. And again, the angle I would like for you to take on the readings and the discussions over the next 2 weeks has to do with the assumptions we make about students once we attach labels to them and how that might affect the way that we look at their work and think about their capabilities. Also, just a quick note about the seminar paper. There will be a seminar paper due 3 weeks from today. I've heard from some of you about your ideas as far as what you might want to work on. If I haven't heard from you and if you have some ideas, drop me a line today, tomorrow, to let me know what you're thinking. I plan to post some guidelines. I know some of you might benefit from having some structure and some guidelines in there. And those of you who have given me your ideas, I think you'll be able to fit whatever you want to work on within guidelines. But I want to make sure that you're able to work on whatever it is you want to work on. So again, if you've written to me with an idea, or if you have an idea and you haven't shared it with me yet, I want to make that work for you in some way so that you come out of this with something that can be perhaps directly useful, applicable, or just to get you thinking more critically about some of the opportunities and dilemmas that we're going to face with teaching writing. So, okay, I've been going on for almost 5 minutes. I'll stop now and I'll post this video up. And I look forward to hearing from you all this week.